Hey everyone out there, it is Jack Wallen again with some audiobook narration tips just for you. Now today, the tip is going to be really specific. Well, maybe not so specific, but it's really important for everyone who wants to get into audiobook narration to understand. And that tip is plosives, P's and D's. How do you do it without hearing that explosion of breath on the recording? Well, it's actually easier than it might sound, but it does take some time to master. Now, the first thing, before you even begin to dive down this rabbit hole, the first thing you must do, this is important again, is have a windscreen. Just like this one. This is a Stedman. Outstanding windscreen. Because what that does is it blocks some of the air that escapes from your mouth and prevents it from hitting the microphone. And that's really the enemy of plosives, is air. It's not necessarily the p sound. It's that when you make that sound, a lot of air comes out. And when that air hits the microphone, it makes that sound, that most undesirable sound that can really wreck your recording. So how do you get around it after you have your windscreen in place? Well, I'm going to preface this by saying, as I mentioned, it does take some time to master this, okay? So don't be discouraged if at the beginning you have trouble doing this, because you've been speaking for how many years? And that's a habit that's hard to get out of. So here's what I do. Now, I'm not actually recording right now because I needed to take a day off because it's just been a week. Anyway, I'm going to show you. This is from POTUS, and I always put my headphones on even though I'm not recording right now. But I'm going to show you. I'm going to demonstrate. Now, hopefully okay. Let's find a good, here's a good sentence right here. Now, remember, POTUS is the main character in POTUS is British. So keep that in mind. Our instruments were already in stands and tuned. Patch's drum kit was laid out in perfect order. 3 cameras were ready to go, and the lighting was shooting away every conceivable shadow. Okay, so there were just a few plosives in there. There's the media nerds in the room. Prepped. Prepped is a good one. Prepped. Okay, how do you say prepped? How do you say it without having that plosive? As I mentioned, this thing blocks the rush of air. So what's key to preventing plosives in your recordings is to not push so much air through your P's. So instead of going p, p, it's more p, p, p. There's a big difference there. And you should practice this with your mic. You could just stand in front of your mic, hit record, and go p, p, p. And you can even see this. See, focus on this. P, p, p. See that windscreen moving? Now watch this. Here's how I think about it. When you normally say a P, it kind of has this feeling of going out, of being horizontal, right? So your energy with that P is driving forward. When I say a P, when I'm recording, I always think of that energy as being vertical. So instead of my lips going P, they're going P. And there's another little trick that instead of with your lips, I tend to, instead of p, 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 in my normal position, I kind of curl them in a little bit. P, p, p. So it's a horizontal energy with a little bit of lip curl, so you're not p, 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 p. See, look, watch this. Watch the windscreen. Nothing. Now, I use the same amount of force with that P. It's really hard to get your embouchure used to doing that. Patch's drum kit was laid out in perfect order. Instead of Patch's drum kit was laid out in perfect order. I can use the same amount of energy, get the same sound, but not have the plosives. See what I mean? It's really tricky. And it's the same thing with D's. D's aren't usually as bad because D's are made in your mouth. D, d, d. But you can do that. And there are other tricks here. For instance, in this particular book, I have a female character that has a very breathy voice. And there are times when I'll use her voice and I listen to it, as you always have to listen to it, and you can hear the breath hitting the microphone, and I'll have to re-record that immediately. So breath, and they're really the only trick with breathy voices is just pulling back on you can pull back on the amount of breath that you force out. Sometimes, this is another trick, sometimes I'll point my mouth a little bit away. This is especially true when I'm recording something that needs to be a little louder. I'll point my mouth a little bit away, so that instead of that breathy voice going directly into the mic, it's going off to the side a little bit. That's another trick you can use. But really, and this is important, the best thing you can do is practice. Is record yourself with speaking plosives, D's, P's, K's, anything that has a plosive sound. And record yourself with breathy voices. And figure out what you can do, how much you need to pull back on the energy, which way you need to tilt your head just a little bit so that the breath isn't bombarding the microphone. There are all sorts of tricks. And sometimes the tricks that work for me won't work for you. Like I can tell you, think vertical on that P, and you might, no, I don't get that. Or I can just say, don't use as much breath. Pull back on your energy with that P. T's, same thing. T, 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 T. When you say T, there's always going to be some air coming out. And a lot of singers they flavor the T with D. But when you're recording voices, that shows a little bit too much. So really, if you find that you're recording with a little bit too much plosiveness in your T's, just pull them back. Just pull back the energy, right? So instead of 10 minutes, people, 10 minutes, people. See, and a lot of times when I listen back to what I'm recording, and if I hear a T that is plosive, I will re-record it. And when I come to that T, instead of thinking forward, I'll think backwards. So instead of 10 minutes, people, I'll think 10 minutes, people. Little tiny tricks. And after you've been doing this for a while, you'll learn which tricks work for you. You'll develop your own tricks. But really, really what's crucial is that you listen back to what you recorded, catch those plosives, and fix them. And and it might behoove you to, before you actually start recording, if you're brand new to this world, just stand in front of your microphone and go p, 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 and d, 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 t, 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 and work out the tricks that make it possible for you to speak those plosives without bombarding your microphone. There you go. That's Plosives with audiobook narration. My name's Jack Wall, and thank you very much for spending your time with me. I know time is very precious these days. I really know time is precious these days. It's been a week, as I said. And if you happen to have a particular thing you want me to address, please put it in the comments, reach out to me, whatever. Just let me know what you want me to address, and I'll do my best to take care of that. And again, thank you. And if you've just hopped in to this, please subscribe to my channel. The more people, the merrier. And I'm going to keep doing these, and also give me and my muse series a view. That's where I have the discussion with my muse about the various artistic endeavors that I undertake, which primarily are two, writing and acting, because I am an author and I am an actor. Anyway, thank you again for being a part of my little world here. Please, please, please be safe, okay? Because I want you to come back. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.